First of all, what brings you to California? And I ask that question because we in California have learned that the Republican candidates don't come here to campaign, but future candidates come here to use California to raise money. What brings you to Southern California?
I'm actually coming here in my capacity as the CEO of a movie production and distribution company called Echo Light Studios. And we have a film coming out called The Christmas Candle. It's the only Christmas movie coming out during the Christmas season, oddly enough. It comes out into theaters on November 22nd, and we're here in town to promote that film and get some screeners to influential folks. It's a Christmas movie, so obviously we'd like to get the churches excited and behind this film, and so we'll be screening it here in the San Diego area.
Very interesting. I noticed those Texas boots. That's unusual.
Well, that's where the company is based. It's based in Dallas, Texas, and we're going to make inspirational and family type films. I mean, that are consistent with my brand, and we're very excited. I mean, we think we've got some great quality films. This film has some interesting people in it. Susan Boyle, the singer, she makes her acting debut in this and sings a song in the film. So we're gonna have a lot of fun with this, and hopefully get some really great, inspiring content out there that reflect the values that I think most Americans have.
Well, we wish you luck with the film, and as you may know, a lot of people are surprised to know that there are a lot of conservatives, actors, and directors in Hollywood.
I'm hearing from all of them. It's amazing because there are a lot of folks who just have to keep it under wraps because they can't get work if they do.
A good friend of mine, Robert Davi, just got bashed by Alec Baldwin yesterday or 2 days ago. It was pretty ugly.
Davi's one of the guys who came out. He's very public about his conservative points of view, and there are a handful of others, but there's a lot who don't. People who are some who are friends of mine who just say, I can't really have any dealings with you or anybody in the Republican sphere because I'll lose my job. And,
right.
You wouldn't think that would happen in America, particularly with people who say they're so tolerant and
on the left.
These people who are just all for tolerance, except when it comes to people who disagree with them.
What was it William F. Buckley said? The left says they're all about other people's ideas until they realize other ideas exist.
Yeah. Well, they are pretty dogmatic, and if you look at the fare that comes out of Hollywood, it's by and large, tries to push a particular point of view, and we're very clear. We want to make inspiring movies that are consistent with the values that I think most Americans hold, and the key is we got to start making really good quality stuff. And I think this film, our first one in the theaters, The Christmas Candle, is a really good quality film, and I think people will really like it and hopefully go out and see it.
Well, maybe we can help you at the screening here. We helped with the screening of Hating Breitbart, as a matter of fact.
Oh, okay, very good.
Shifting subjects a moment. If you've not heard, there's a story in the news that it's called the government shutdown, called Obamacare. Now, one of the latest developments today, a troubling story put out by Politico. Some emails have been leaked. You've been traveling this morning. I'm assuming perhaps you haven't seen it.
I was in Phoenix last night, yeah.
And the story is basically, as I say, emails have been leaked showing that John Boehner, House Speaker Boehner, while publicly posturing that he wants to end the exemption or the subsidy for federal employees, for members of the House and Senate, making that a sticking point, privately, the emails show he's been behind the scenes, meeting with Harry Reid, meeting with leaders of the Democrat Party, strategizing a way to get the government funded and save the exemption, save the subsidies.
You see, I don't understand this. Look, I understand that members of Congress are saying, look, they made a mistake in Obamacare by stripping out federal health employee benefits for members of Congress and their staff, and no other federal employee loses their benefits except members of Congress, not even the president or his staff, and that's not fair. Well, okay, that may not be fair, but that's the law. Number one. Number two, if you lose your benefits, you still can compensate your employees. Pay them more money because they're losing benefits. Clearly, they are. So pay them more money and have them go out and go to the exchanges and purchase the insurance. It's not like it's an enormous hardship. I mean, you're basically doing what the rest of America, in a lot of cases, are going to have to do. So I don't understand why they're making such a big fuss about this, and particularly some Republicans are making a big fuss about this. And now you hear Speaker Boehner trying to fight for this when it can be easily made up by just increasing salaries enough to be able to go out and purchase the insurance. Right. The key point is that Obamacare is damaging for this country. And it would actually be a very nice thing to see, to have members of Congress and the staff actually have to deal with these exchanges, because these exchanges, you're already seeing reports, they're not working well. They're going to fail in many cases. They're going to cause problems. They're going to dramatically increase the cost of insurance. And members of Congress, I know someone will say, well, I didn't vote for it. Well, that's okay. Your body voted for it, and you're going to have to live with the consequences just like everybody else. So I think it's a provision that should stay in the bill. They should not repeal it. And they should stand firm on that. They should stand firm on making sure that the individual mandate doesn't go into effect. President Obama has waived about 20 provisions of Obamacare because they don't work. And the two biggest ones were the mandate for small and large businesses that they have to cover their employees with insurance. The only people they didn't waive the mandate on, there's only 3 mandates in the bill: small employer, large employer mandate, 2 different kinds of mandates, and the third is on individuals. That's the most onerous to most people, and that's the one that's going to be very costly to millions of Americans. And for the Republicans to stand and say, look, we don't want to have this mandate go into place when these exchanges aren't ready. Insurance prices in some states are going up 3 and 4 times. We shouldn't impose this on the American public. And that's a ground to stand on. I know they wanted to defund Obamacare, and I was notionally, I like the idea of standing up and fighting against that. But now we're at a time where you need to compromise, and compromise is not a dirty word if you get things you want, as opposed to compromising with more of what they want.
Right. Where do you think these compromises should be? Where do they have leverage, they being Republicans? Where should they be looking to compromise with Democrats?
Well, I think the things that should be on the table right now that Republicans should stand firm for are, I believe, this congressional exemption. Yeah. I believe the individual mandate, the medical device tax, which is a horrible tax.
Yeah. Even Harry Reid has called it
stupid.
Right.
I mean, 70-some% of the Senate already voted to repeal the medical device tax, so it would pass in the Senate otherwise. And then the funding for members of Congress were assured when the House passed the Obamacare bill that abortions would not be covered under Obamacare.
And it's a big issue for you.
It's a big issue, but it's an issue of the integrity of the process. I mean, you had members of Congress who said they wouldn't have voted for this bill, but their assurance that we were not going to have federal funding of abortions or funding of abortions through this program.
Let me interject. Is it because there's some confusion out there? Those on the left say that the federal funding of abortion applies to rape, incest, the mother's health, the mother's life in jeopardy. Now there's some reports coming out saying, well, that's kind of fuzzy because mother's life in jeopardy, mother's health can be broadened. And what's your interpretation?
There's always been a clear demarcation line between health and life, and health, according to the courts, can mean anything. Financial health. Right. So health is not an exception. It's just basically whatever you want to do. Life is an exception. Doctors have to certify that this in fact would jeopardize the life, and that's a higher standard, and it's a legitimate standard, and one that both sides have always accepted.
Where do you stand on that? I know you do believe, you're a devout Catholic. You believe life begins at conception. Do you believe that that Obamacare should cover abortion in cases of rape, incest, and a mother's life at risk?
Here's what I would say. First off, I don't believe life begins at conception. I know life begins. It's not a faith article. It's not up for discussion. It's a scientific fact that human life begins at conception, just like all life of all animals in the world begins at the conception of that. They're genetically what they are going to be, and they're alive. So it's human life, or any the life of a cat, it begins at conception. Right. So that's a fact. So the question is, how are we going to treat that? And
I agree with what you're saying, by the way.
Well, no, I understand. No, I'm just saying that language matters, and when you say, well, you believe this, then it's a matter of faith or a matter of opinion. Right. It's not a matter of faith. It's a matter of fact. And the
left loves to fall back to science.
Absolutely.
Right?
They want to say, oh, we believe in science. Why aren't you guys scientific? And then when you explain the science, you find a textbook that doesn't teach that. I'll pay you $10, not $10,000 like some people would suggest. But no, we are for an exemption for that does not allow for abortions to be covered. Period. I mean, that's where I am. And if we want to negotiate from there, we can negotiate. But there's no reason for it. Abortion is not health care. Taking the life of a child is not health care. And if people want to go out and buy that additional coverage, I'm sure it would not be particularly expensive, any more than the other expenses associated with reproductive issues.
Latest CNN poll, and we're going to quote CNN here, shows that the approval rating among Americans for members of Congress is now at a whopping 10%. Now, what's interesting about your background, Senator, is you've been both a senator and a congressman. First of all, do you believe that both the Senate and the Congress are more polarized today than when you were in office, which is not that long ago?
Yeah, I mean, Chris Matthews is running around speaking of another network, talking about the relationship between Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill.
Right.
There was a different time. They came from basically the same culture. America now is very, very divided along cultural lines. I mean, and that just really wasn't the case for most of our country's history. But we saw a dramatic demarcation in the 1960s and 70s, and we see now a group of people in America who want to fundamentally, the President said it himself, transform America.
Right.
To change its fundamental principles. You think about what does it mean to be an American? It's not a race, it's not an ethnicity.
Right.
I mean, you're an Italian American, I'm an Italian American, right? I mean, African Americans, Hispanic American, it means something other than race, creed, or it means a set of values and principles. That's what makes you an American, because you believe in certain things that make America America. And what they're saying is, no, we want to fundamentally change those things. We want to make those things that were in the Declaration of Independence, that were in our Constitution, and those are antiquated documents written by folks who were, oppressors of minorities and women and everything else, and that we need to fundamentally change it to adopt a whole different idea of what America should be. And now there is a growing body of people who buy into that. That's the divide. Tip O'Neill didn't believe that. Tip O'Neill didn't want to transform America. It is a new generation, and you'd say, well, the Republicans are extremists. No, Republicans are where America has been for 200 plus years, and there's a group of people who want to foundationally change this country. Now, that America may want to go there. California is heading that way. If you want to see what the rest of America is going to look like, look at what California is doing.
And Senator, they're telling me we're out of time. I would love to have you back sometime in the future, talk about your film. And we'd love to help you promote it here on your screening in San Diego.
Thank you.
And perhaps we can talk about how did the Democratic Party get on this road where, as you said, Tip O'Neill, former Democrat, once believed in America and its values. Now that Democratic Party doesn't feel that way. The founding fathers are old white guys who own slaves.
Yeah.
All right. Before we go, I got to ask you, what about your Pittsburgh Pirates?
We set the record, I don't know if you know this or not, but the Pirates set the record for the longest consecutive streak of losing seasons at 21 seasons.
In North American franchise sports.
Yeah,
I didn't know it.
It's horrific. And to now not have a winning season, but make the playoffs and win our first playoff game, I'm pretty excited.
The city was stoked last night. I watched a little bit on TV.
It's really great. It's good to see it.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.